Hi, folks. 10 minutes before 7 o'clock Eastern, 10 minutes before 6 o'clock Central on this Tuesday, December 11th, 2012. I'm Stephen Boyle. Well, I hope you all are ready because winter is really going to be coming in here and wreaking havoc for many people on the East Coast. So right now it's calm, but we get to take really New England. The first storm that comes in here is really centered for New England. The second storm, it's the East Coast. So we'll talk a little bit about both of these storms, what they're going to do, and the potentials that both of them have. And they're really interesting. So I know it's been a tough start here, but winter is really going to kick itself up here fairly soon. So don't lose any hope here. Alright, so here's what's going on. We currently have a little bit of winter weather going on in through parts of the Northwest. We also have some winter weather advisories going through the Sierra Nevada, and also parts of Nevada are under a winter storm watch. There is also some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories in the mountains just north and west of, or north and east, of Los Angeles. So a little bit of winter weather, activity going on there. There is some freeze warnings way down in southern Texas this evening. Not only that, but we also have a hazardous weather outlook here in southern New England. Let's sort of take a brief look at that for a minute and just explain to you what that's all about. A period of snow and ice appears likely across portions of interior southern New England sometime Sunday into Monday. However, uncertainty is high on duration of precipitation types and potential of snow and ice accumulations given the time range. So, again, actually for my area here in this part of the state of Massachusetts, through the whole entire event, which will be going from really extremely late Saturday night, kind of breaking up a little bit on Sunday afternoon, and then really going Sunday night through Monday. This area will be going through all winter precipitation. Pretty much eastern regions will be pretty much a little bit more on the rainy side towards the end of the storm, rapidly changing over to all snow. So first of all, I still want to sort of show you what's going on here, where that storm comes from, and the storm behind it. But first of all, before we talk about that, I want to talk a little bit about the teleconnections. We're going to start off with the PNA here, and I know a lot of people lately have been saying, the PNA has been negative, and we really don't have a shot at any major storms. Not the case here, folks. Just really not the case. We have quite a negative, we do have a negative PNA, which is true, and it will be starting to go up, but to be very honest with you, PNA has very little to do when it, or very, very little influence when it comes in terms of storms and how they will be affecting us on the East Coast and how major they are. Some of our most major storms have occurred in both positive and negative PNA, so it really doesn't matter what the PNA values are. It's really, you really want to look more at the NAO. But also another thing is the AO. Now, again, some of the models are going a little bit ridiculous here and saying that the PNA is going, or the AO, is going to go way positive. That I don't see. If you look at the majority, most of the majority of the models have this pretty much staying negative through pretty much the whole period here. Now, looking at the NAO, very, very important. Again, remember, this is a mean of both the east and the west-based NAO. Alright, so even though that you really want to see a fairly negative NAO, it doesn't need to be totally negative to get a very good storm on the East Coast. As long as it's not in these values up here, which we were seeing last year, for the most part, things are staying pretty negative since August, pretty much through now. Pretty much it was the exact opposite last year at this time. So looking very good for the East Coast here. Now, again, more than the NAO mean, you really want to look at the west-based NAO. And this is the 12Z line graphs. And overall, you can see that there's this brief little spike, and then it pretty much flattens out after that. Now, look at the west-based NAO, and look at how negative that goes. It dips down a bit more than the regular NAO mean. And the west-based NAO is very important when it comes in terms of seeing snow here on the East Coast. Now look at this east-based NAO. It's a little bit more closer to neutral. You really want your east-based NAO closer to neutral rather than have it way negative or way positive. So notice how this stays closer to neutral, which is very good. And again, the P&A doesn't really matter whether it's negative or positive. It really doesn't make a difference. So let's start off right now with the 18Z NAM. And you can see here that we have that cooler air spilling in here into New England. Temperatures today were about, in some locations, 20 degrees cooler than what they were yesterday, or 15 degrees cooler. Here, it was actually no degrees cooler, or maybe a degree or two, because we're really where the warm front set up. But overall, most of New England is much cooler than it was yesterday because of that front that came through. So moving onward, you can see that there is a little bit of a ridge that builds in here in the southeast. However, it doesn't get that far north. All right, and this is what's different here is we have this warmer air coming in, but it's not. And remember, this is now December as well. What's interesting here is this is our storm, the first storm. Now, the first storm, remember, will really only be affecting New England with snow and frozen precipitation. Mid-Atlantic states will pretty much see a rainy situation. However, notice how we have a nice area of low pressure moving right through the central portions of the plain states. Notice how we have another area of low pressure down in here. These two are really phased together, and this secondary low pressure system is going to become a significant factor in giving New England a pretty interesting snow event. So that is the first event. That's the 18Z NAM. Now looking at the Canadian, they have a fairly interesting situation that happens here. Here is that low. It's ejected into the Midwest. We have our little secondary low. We can tell that it's a secondary low because there's a little bit of a dip here in the isobars that normally tells you a low wants to form. So noting that, we continue to move on. And also this area of energy down here in southern Texas is also going to try to get sucked up into this low pressure system as well. And it will most likely succeed in doing that. Now, when you're looking at what's going on in the Midwest, you're looking at this and saying, well, there's where most of the energy is. It's in Missouri right now. But as this continues to move north and as this low ejects into the tail end of this system, you'll find that the actual main system up here is going to start losing some of its QPF, and you're going to notice that a lot of the QPF continues to stick around down into this region. And notice how there's several clusters of lows. There's one here, and one here. These are all going to try to merge into this storm and pretty much produce one main secondary low. And as you can obviously see, it's pretty successful in doing so. And notice how, therefore, you have much more energy down in Alabama and Georgia, where we have finally our secondary low forming, starting to form. And this is very, very good news for New England and portions of the Northeast. So therefore, here's where the main low is. You can see we have cooler air, and the cooler air is really pouring into New England, which is very important because with this cooler air pouring into New England, it'll keep things more stable, and we won't be able to see this warm air really impede all that much. I really don't see the warmer air getting farther to the north than, we'll say, southern Connecticut. Now, most of the models lately have been showing that it could go up into this region, but to be very honest with you, from what I've been looking at lately, it looks like about in here is where it's going to set up. But also you're going to be influenced by the marine layer on the coast, so therefore if you live along the coast, you're probably going to see mostly rain transitioning rapidly over to all snow once we get closer to the final end to the system. Now what's interesting here is let's zoom in here. This is actually a secondary low off of the main low, and then there is another low that forms somewhere. I am going to say that this is actually going to go a little bit farther to the east, and I would say it would probably be forming somewhere in here, riding up something like in that direction. So you have really three lows. You have what we would call we have a primary low, a secondary, and a tertiary low, which all form from the same storm system, which goes to show you that you have quite a bit of it's a pretty intense storm system, and you can see what happens. Now, the low moves a little bit too far north, but I think that this will eventually, as models continue to move on, you'll probably notice the low being centered somewhere in here and eventually riding up like this eventually into the Gulf of Maine. You'll see how that's now moving into the Gulf of Maine. And as this storm system moves more to the north, coastal regions will transition over to snow as we get this cold air wrapping around behind the system. So in the end, I think what we're going to find out is that inland sections could get a good maybe up to 9 inches of snow, with coastal regions probably seeing 2 or 3 inches of snow. That's preliminary right now. It's still, there will be time for things to update. Now, for those of you who live in New Jersey, I know there's people in New Jersey wondering about this, people in Pennsylvania. This particular, and I want to enforce this, only this storm, not all storms this winter, some storms, what will happen is you will find them moving through the Great Lakes. What will happen in some of these storms is they'll actually form a secondary low farther to the south. However, this time around, it forms it somewhere in New Jersey and the Pennsylvania area, which is not so good for Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And what will happen is this low will track in somewhat of this direction, giving really only New England a snow event, and also inland New York, and that's pretty much about it. However, not all storms are going to be like this. So those of you in the Mid-Atlantic are thinking, this year is going to be crap for me. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Actually, the next storm system, which I'll show you on the GFS, and it's being shown, it doesn't show it hitting the Northeast, but I have a very strong feeling that it will. So this is essentially what the GFS is saying. Now, the GFS is a lot lighter with their QPF amounts, and it doesn't have as an intense system as the Euro and as the Canadian. Canadian has a little bit more of an interesting situation going on. Now, here is our system that we're monitoring. This storm is again ejected from the southern stream. It really gets its act together when it's in the southern stream, and really the main amount of precipitation is formed in the southern stream. Now, here's the thing. Okay, with the way how the pattern is setting up, I don't see a storm just moving up like this and just moving up and out like this. With the pattern that we're in, it would move up the coast. So don't worry, this is the GFS, and it has it being very progressive as always. And remember, the GFS is not a model you want to take with very high credence. Okay, so don't worry, there will be many more model runs. Okay. And again, the GFS does have other storms. However, they have it going out to sea because guess what? Of the positive NAO that they're predicting. And again, that is not true. I don't think that will happen. But even if that does happen, after Christmas, we will see some very intense activity going on. And I do anticipate a fairly active start to January. Now, here is the ensembles, and the ensembles, some of them are actually quite different than the operational, which is what I just showed you. You'll actually note that some of them have a very intense storm coming in here. All right, so this is for Sunday, and you can notice how this one shows a little bit of snow. Some of them show some pretty good amounts of snow coming in here. This one shows a very intense snowstorm. This one as well shows a fairly interesting situation. You can see, about 4 inches, up to 4 inches at this particular point through most of southern New England. This one shows pretty much a good 5 to 6 inches through southern New England, northern New England, and central New York, seeing a very potent snowstorm. Let's see here. 144. Moving on to hour 150. Again, so this is the GFS. This is the GFS. So remember, don't take it all that seriously. And I think as we get closer to the event, the GFS will sort of start sniffing this out a little bit better. But again, here is the this is actually with the this, I believe, with one of the storms around the 22nd, and they really show it scented. They don't show a very interesting situation. I don't really agree with this. This is very, very, very rapid. This would suggest that the storm would be just moving very fast to the north and east, and only bringing maybe a moderate snowstorm to New England. This is not going to happen. The storm will be very large and very intense. When you have a very large and intense storm, they don't move that fast, which the GFS has a very bad error with. It's one of their biases. So moving on to hour 216, you can generally see pretty much the same. I mean, again, this run of the GFS, I believe there was some issues with it. A little bit of convective feedback issues, probably it was dealing with this time around. Looking at the majority of the consensus of the other models that it was, because I'll show you the Euro in a minute, and it's much different 12Z than the 12Z GFS. You can see quite a different scenario here. Moving on here, I mean, you see this one showing a fairly interesting situation. This one shows a fairly interesting situation. But again, it's the GFS has a lot of biases with it. And like I said, the Euro paints a better picture for snow lovers of the Northeast. Let's see. Around New Year's Eve, or Christmas Eve. Yeah, around Christmas Eve. So that's hour 300, 312. This shows a very interesting situation. Starts showing a very interesting situation. 336. I mean, there you go. You're starting to see some more interesting things. I believe this member of this ensemble member is very accurate with the way it's portraying this particular storm. Very accurate. Let's see here. So there's some more interesting snows. That's at hour 372, and finally at hour 384. I mean, there's this one here. Very interesting situation going on. Some pretty intense snow through some of the southeast and up through the mid-Atlantic into New England. But then moving on to some of the other ones show some lighter amounts. But I think this that storm around Christmas Eve will be very, very, very strong. So we'll see what happens with it. All right, so let's look at the euro first of all. And remember, this is I'm going to be showing you the 0 and the I'm going to show you the 0 and the 12Z runs of the euro. Very, very good. Paints a very nice picture for snow lovers. First of all, I'm finding here that with this upcoming storm coming in for this upcoming weekend, the end of the weekend, beginning of next week, there's a lot of consensus on it right now. So I would pretty much I feel fairly safe to say I think at least 4 inches of snow for the good majority of New England, at least an inch for coastal regions. So here we are. This is the euro. This is the 0Z, and notice how it there's the snow, very intense amounts, pretty much, and you can see. Whoops, didn't mean for that to happen. You can see overall through coastal Maine down through southern New Hampshire and most of Massachusetts, you're talking about 6 to 9 inches locally. This would be very locally, some localized spots of maybe 10 or 12 inches of snow, but those would be probably scented more towards coastal Maine than anything. But overall, a good 6 to 9 inch snowstorm is what's being painted here. Now, then comes in another storm, and this was first being suggested by the Euro that it would come in around the 21st. However, the 12Z Euro is a little bit slower with that. So I would probably be more bound to agree with the 12Z Euro on that one, since this was a little bit more on the progressive nature. But here is here is the 12Z, and generally notice how it says the same exact thing, and now more of a 6 to 9 inch storm system through a lot of New England. You're talking pretty much southern Maine, practically all of New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, and pretty much interior Massachusetts. You're talking interior Massachusetts, pretty much Worcester westward. Once you go east of Worcester, then you're talking about lower amounts, and they rapidly fall. So that's overall what I'm looking at with this time around when it comes in terms of snow. And notice how overall the storm isn't even in the picture yet. I would say probably sometime around between the 21st and the 24th, we'll probably see that storm coming in here, which will be very good for people who want to see snow on Christmas. So overall, I am seeing winter really kicking into gear here very, very fast. And once the snow is on the ground, it will be on the ground, and we will see very, very potent situations. So that is what's going on. And before I move on, before we end off the situation, or before we end off this video, I want to kind of tell everybody that I am now a part of the New England Weather Works team. I'm doing I am pretty much forecasting for southern New England. New England Weather Works is starting to branch out and sort of do their forecasts for each section of, trying to expand to each section of the country. Right now, the two active ones are for southern New England, which is me, and then Ohio. So those are the two that are currently active on the website, which I'm posting it on the video, which this is the link. I will also post the link down in the description as well. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click on WeatherWorks outlets. And if you want to look at my blog that I will be keeping up to date very, very frequently, go ahead and click on Southern New England WeatherWorks, especially if you live here in Southern New England. If you don't, well, then you can continue watching my videos or visit this website, and you'll be able to get information from there. I also encourage you to join my the chat room that I have with a NOAA meteorologist, and in there we talk about weather and in upcoming storms and all of that. So again, please send me a message if you are interested in that, or leave a comment down at the bottom and I will private message you about that. So again, that's what's going on. I hope you all are ready for winter. I would say get your snow blowers ready and manned. So I would, juice them up and get them ready to go, because they will be in use very soon. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will be back sometime, hopefully very, very soon, with another update. Take care, everyone.